Coming up live on Livewire, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking with some folks from the Shock-Free Coalition. It's a coalition of people put together to push for more humane dog training. Also, Gary Allen Wright, who's an actor in town and around, he's also a director. He's with CalStage, and they're doing a play called Times Like These. It certainly is a play that is set in Nazi Germany. It is a play about a true story about actors trapped in Nazi Germany near the war. So stay tuned for Livewire right after these important messages. Watch this guy unboxing. Okay, it's called the Shock-Free Coalition, and Pam Francis Tuss, you are one of the cheerleaders for that.
I am. I'm the
and you brought along your
coordinator.
attorney here, Mr. Haupt.
Yep.
Good. So it's interesting that we would come up with this. I've always wanted to know. I've owned a number of dogs in my short lifetime, and I can tell you that I would never use any one of those things. And a couple of the dogs required a lot of patience and training to be able to take for a walk, or deal with them in a dog park. This is very important. Mm-hmm. And people now use these things, and I see you brought one.
I did.
Is that what this is? These
That's
little
what these
guys
are.
right there, right?
Those
I don't know if
little
you can
things.
zoom in on that camera number one, but those little guys right there go on right against the dog's skin, right?
Right, correct.
And what happens is that you have a little button here.
Yep, and you zap it.
And you zap the dog, and it stuns the dog, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's supposed to make the dog not do what they want them to do, what they don't want them to do.
Marketing here, it says Free Spirit Pet Products.
Right.
But they also have a caveats in there, right?
Yeah, they do.
What do they say?
Basically, they say that this can harm the dog and actually could cause death.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it?
But it is certainly not against the law to have this, right?
Not in this country.
I see. And both of you have a relationship with this, the wonderful system that we have here for dogs. There are not too many of them running around crazy through the streets of Sacramento, thank goodness, because it's really filled with a lot of traffic.
Yep.
But at the same time, there a lot of people have no training or experience or comparative experience to allow them to really own a dog, yet they have them.
Absolutely. People can get a dog without a you have to get a license to have a dog, but you don't have to have any training to have the dog. So, our coalition, we got, it's about a year old now. It's the Shock-Free Coalition, and what we want to do is try to get people together to sign our pledge on our website, which is shockfree.org. And that's anyone who agrees that these inhumane products should be taken, out of the off the market altogether. Like you said, it's not banned here in California or in the United States. No, nowhere in the United States, but
12 countries in Europe have banned them.
12 countries in Europe.
So we're kind of behind the time here. If 12 countries around the world say that this is inhumane and we shouldn't be using them, well, what's happening here in the United States? Why aren't we doing that? Dr. Ian Dunbar, who is actually the father of positive reinforcement training, said for these devices to be effective, you have to have three things. You have to have a thorough understanding of canine learning and canine behavior, and a thorough understanding of learning theory. And thirdly, you have to have impeccable timing. And if you have all three of those, you don't need this.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I get it.
So it's kind of crazy. I've been training for about 5 years now, and I've done nothing but positive reinforcement training, and I get the better effects than I think you're going to get with this product. When I train with positive reinforcement, I get a nice, wonderful bond between my animal and my owner. Because everything is positive, everything is collaborative. We give the dogs a choice. We don't force them to do anything, and it builds this incredible bond. When you use products like this, and even prong collars, if we want to add those into this product, and we can, the dogs associate everything, and dogs, when they get shocked or when they get that prong collar pulled, they're not sure why that's happening. And so your dog is getting distrustful of you when that keeps happening, and they're thinking, wow, why is my
loving host?
Yeah, why is my best friend doing this to me? We're supposed to, I don't understand why. And so what we're doing is we're not telling the dog what we want him to do instead. So I just find that the other thing that happens with these is that you're not quite sure what the residual fallout's going to be. And studies have been done that shows that positive reinforcement has zero fallout, and items like this has a lot of aggressive fallout from dogs.
Fallout meaning the return of bad behavior.
You got it.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing. Now let's see. There, you brought a little video clip, and I'd like to see that little video clip, and we could start that video clip where it talks about the use of these devices that shock dogs. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Here we go. Oh, there are the countries.
I press the device on my arm to see for myself. This model could be adjusted for strength from 0 to 99. At single-digit levels, it barely registered. Oh,
How'd that feel?
wow, that's a 15.
That's a 15.
But once we got into the double digits, it started to really zap you. Oh, wow, that's a 20.
That's a 20.
That one,
That one really hurt.
yeah,
That's a 30.
that was like a...
That's
yeah.
a 30.
30 was enough for me. We never tried 90.
Wow. And how high does it go?
This particular one goes up to 99
99.
Yeah.
And you had a guy jumping
at 30,
human
or at
being
15
jumping,
actually,
15,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
I see. Okay. So, if if the way it works is that this kind of thing usually can get people joining, and if people are interested in joining your army to march on to beautiful Sacramento and talk to the legislature there, because it looks like a law in the making, right?
Well, that's where Jim comes in.
Yes. That's what we would hope. We have a long way to go. We're going to be doing some surveying to see what people know about shock collars, what opinions they have about them. My impression is that most people don't even know what they are. Or if they do know what they are, they know very little about them, and they don't have a negative impression. They don't know how harmful they can be. So one of our jobs will be to find out what people know, probably begin an education campaign before we go to the legislature. What exactly we go to the legislature with, we don't know yet. It may be strict regulation, it may be an outright ban, but that's something that will be educated on when we do the public opinion survey.
So, Jim, I'm not sure about how it works in California. Can a city itself ban this product?
A city probably could ban the product. I think that would be permissible in California. At that point, though, does it do enough good? If the city of Sacramento, for example, banned shock collars.
Well, we saw all these countries, that one would think that, okay, we could go directly to the state and see what the state would say.
Right.
I don't know what kind of resistance. I mean, this is probably part of a big coalition of people who own these businesses with these shock collars.
Absolutely.
They will be against this idea, of course.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh yeah, we're going to get some blowback, I'm sure, from these companies, but
But if people are interested in marching along with you, what will they do?
So if they could go to www.shockfree.org, and we have a pledge right there. They can sign the pledge, and it doesn't matter. You can be any person in the United States that can go and sign that anywhere in the United States.
I see.
So we've got coordinators in various states around. So we're just trying to gather as many people so that we can give it over to this guy. So he says, "Yep, we've got the army behind us."
Well, you should know
so
that
we
our,
can.
our signal only goes to the county line. But but this is a good start and a very interesting start. And I find it fascinating that it hasn't. It just bothers me that this hasn't been. I didn't know these things still existed for dogs.
Yeah, and what's sad about it is that owners don't know it either. Owners go to trainers and they say, "Well, let's use this," and they don't know any better. So, what we're trying to do is educate these people to let them know, you don't want to use this because you're going to get, some pretty bad behavior out of them, or, you can really affect the psyche of a dog on top of that. I don't want my dog to be fearful and timid and scared of everything.
So this could have just a negative effect on the behavior, and then you could, instead of having a healthy animal, loving animal, you'd have one that recoils at your face.
Absolutely. I've taken on clients who have had this first, and then they come to me and say, "Hey, can you help me?" And of course I can. We'll try to turn this around.
And importantly, this is not just a single opinion. There are many peer-reviewed journals that have published research on how aversive training techniques and shock collars in particular are not good for training dogs. They do produce effects that you don't anticipate that are not good.
I see. Well, Jim and Pam, thanks so much for talking to me about this. It's an important issue, I think, that we deal with. Love and not shock therapy. Some people get shock therapy, and it's a wholly different thing. And but other people understand that there are some therapies like this that are potential killers.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, good luck. Come back when something changes, and you can report out to our listeners.
Hopefully.
Our viewers.
Okay.
Yeah, I can think I'm still on radio after all these years.
Shockfree.org.
Shockfree.org.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we are going to take a short pause for the cause right now. We're going to some important messages about what's happening in your community. And we'll be back with Gary Wright, who is with CalStage, and we're going to talk about the play that he's in called Times Like These. So stay tuned for Livewire right after this.
Look at me. Hey.
Raymond, look at mommy.
Maybe the light hurts his eyes.
Maybe she's just not hungry. Maybe he can't hear us. Maybe we're not stimulating him enough. Maybe it's a phase.
Avoiding eye contact is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
And then from this angle, it all makes a star.
I'm a teacher. Let me tell you what I make. I make learning a privilege, not a chore.
Show up
And frustration,
absorb
a
what
tool,
people are giving you.
not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy and giving up impossible.
And then we're gonna turn the lights and everybody look up.
I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought.
What's your reaction? Yeah! Yeah, exactly.
And unconventional methods
Okay, what else?
common.
This is their world.
There's nothing.
And then they die. Go ahead, go, go, go.
I'm a teacher. I make more.
Sein oder nicht sein, das ist hier die Frage. Ob's edler im Gemüt der Pfeil und Schleudern des wütenden Geschicks. To take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.
So, times like these is a play at California Stage, and with me in the studio here is Gary Allen Wright, who is an actor in that production. Not Guys and Dolls, is it?
No, no, not at all.
No, and California Stage does a lot of new works, and it tends to do dramas, and many theaters don't do dramas, so a lot of California or Sacramento residents are, they think that theater is, is comedy and something very light, but this is actually something that is real relevant. I understand that a lot of people have reacted to it because of some recent events, and it's about primarily what, anti-Semitism, the build of fear. What?
Well, it's about a couple of people. I mean, I would say it's about two lobsters in a pot, and the lobsters are a married couple in Berlin in the 30s who happen to be actors, and one of them is the woman, Meta, is she's a beloved theater leading lady at the Prussian State Theater, which is the flagship theater company in Germany at the time. And she's famous, she's beloved, she's universally acknowledged as brilliant and a national treasure, and it comes out sometime around 1934 that she's Jewish. Meanwhile, her husband is not brilliant, and he's the first to admit it. He's a bit player, and that's who I play. He's a bit player, and he's not ambitious. He's very content to bask in the reflected glow of his brilliant wife, and kind of keep, off in the wings. And what happens as Meta is outed as a person of Jewish descent is that she gets fired from the theater company, and her life shrinks smaller and smaller. This social butterfly is confined basically to her apartment. She becomes a shut-in, climbing the walls, going nuts, literally and figuratively. And meanwhile, her husband, who is blessed with the acceptable Aryan lineage, his career takes off. So my character, Oscar, leaves the bit roles behind and starts playing lead roles. And as the regime grows more and more oppressive and life in Berlin gets more and more dangerous for her, for the wife, she fights back in the only way she can, which is by kibitzing her husband in these roles, in their apartment. The whole play takes place in the apartment. It's about 30 short scenes, all in the apartment, all just between the two of them.
So, what does she do? I mean, how does the tension build? Will the story mount?
Oh, well, as he starts to get these bigger roles that he's not ready for, that he never imagined he would ever play, like Petruchio, she starts coaching him in these roles, and she does it in a subversive way that's intended to hold up the mirror to the Nazi regime. So she coaches him to play Petruchio as an abusive Nazi male.
I see.
And later, when he gets cast as Hamlet, she sort of has the consent of the new artistic director in the theater who admires her. She has his consent to coach Oscar as Hamlet, and she starts making not only kibitzing Oscar, but making some fairly sweeping decisions about the thrust of this production. And basically what it is a satire of the Nazi regime. It's what she turns this Hamlet into.
And how do the Nazi leaders take this satire?
Not that well.
No.
No.
Can't take a joke?
They seem like such balanced guys, but no, they fly off the handle a little.
A little bit. And that is how the action builds towards.
Yeah, I mean, it takes them a while to catch on, but once they do catch on,
they're in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting piece, and John O'Keefe is a California playwright. He's had a number of works done throughout the area. I know Don't Call Me Anything But Mother was one of them, a very, very popular play. And then He was with the Magic Theater for a number of years. In fact, I think he's still connected to the Magic Theater in San Francisco.
I think he was a contemporary of Sam Shepard at the Magic.
He was.
Wasn't
He was. Yeah, they both were actually born and bred in the Magic Theater, kind of.
Yeah.
Shepard had a lot of other connections, but in film and the like. But his playwriting career kind of really started to soar then.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting play in that it's called Times Like These, so it does reflect times like these? Is that what the issue is?
Oh, well, I think the title is kind of brilliant because it just keeps getting more and more resonant. They say that, that anytime you go see a play, that play exists simultaneously at 3 points in time. The time in which it's set, in this case, 1930s in Berlin. The time in which it was written, in this case, about 16 years ago during the Bush administration, when we were figuring out how to respond to 9/11, and we were implementing the Patriot Act and kind of cozying up to the ideas of torturing people and things like that.
Yes.
So there are things in the play that that really jump out at you about that time, and then here we are now performing it in the second year of the Trump administration. So I have to say you feel those 3 time periods to a greater or lesser degree, with depending on what play you're doing and when you're doing it. But I've never felt it more strongly with this. And if I could read an excerpt or two,
oh yes, you
I'd like
can.
to
Well, let's look
demonstrate.
at a slideshow before you do that. We have
Absolutely.
2 or 3 slides, and you can narrate them.
Oh,
what's
okay.
this?
Oh goodness. Oh well, that's me and Lois Maston Ewing, who plays Meta. And that's us at home, and she is talking to the guy who's the artistic director of the theater at the very beginning of the play, who Oscar does not like very much.
Okay. Well, let's see another one.
Oh, there's me in the costume of Hamlet. Hamlet, the concept of this Hamlet is that Hamlet is based on Horst Wessel, who was a sort of he was a Nazi hero or thug, depending on your point of view, I guess. He was a member of the SA, which was, I think they're colloquially known as the brown shirts. And there's Meta, kind of later in the play, going a little batty, actually.
I see.
Yeah,
stuck in the apartment.
She's been stuck in the apartment for quite a long time, and she's starting to have some lapses of reason.
I see. So these a little clip you want to read.
Yeah.
I would love to hear it, and maybe you could give us the lead-in.
Of course. So this is a scene pretty early in the play where the fire in the Reichstag building has happened, and the official word from the government is that this fire was supposed to be the signal to start a bloody uprising of Jews and communists. But luckily, the government caught it in time, and they've arrested the ringleaders, and you're all safe. So everything's going to be okay. So Meta is talking about her theory that it wasn't the Jews who did it, it wasn't the communists who did it, but the Nazis actually did it themselves. She doesn't use the term false flag, but that's her theory. So anyway, Meta says, and she's trying to convince Oscar that this is right. There is a catastrophe. A building has been destroyed. People have been killed. Everyone is running around in terror. They don't know where to hide, what will happen next. And this guy comes along who wasn't really liked all that much before, but now he's there in the ashes of disaster, in the still smoldering fires, naming the people who did it, promising to punish them. You'd rally around that man. You know, I never wanted to think about politics. I took it for granted that civilized people would act in good taste. Now, everything I know has been turned around. Nothing is the same. I used to think there were crazy people and sane people, but now I know that we're all crazy. How else would you explain it? That little screaming man is our leader. And I'll tell you something else. Guys like him, once they're in office, they never let go. And Oscar says, I know you're scared about this, but this foolishness, it won't last long. It can't possibly. And she says, why not? And Oscar says, because this is Germany. And she says, oh, yes, of course, yes. I didn't think of that.
So if people will come to see this, they can also witness this timeline all the way through Kristallnacht, which I don't know if people
Yes,
know
and
what
beyond.
that is. What happened at Kristallnacht?
Kristallnacht was a night in November when there was a sudden outpouring of indignation and violence against the Jewish community, which took the form of well, there was a lot of broken glass, which is why they call it Kristallnacht. But people were routed out of their homes and packed away to concentration camps, or simply
Windows of
beaten and killed where they
churches. I think there were something like 70 or 80 synagogues that were destroyed.
in many towns all over Germany.
Yeah. So it's important for us to understand that anti-Semitism kind of lives still in America, and that it is part of times like these.
Also, really interesting, I think, to note that after the burning of the Reichstag, the government said this was supposed to be the signal for a concerted effort by the Jews and the communists to rise up and shed blood and take over. And in fact, that's what Kristallnacht was later. It's that old thing that we so often see of accusing your enemy of the thing that you're doing.
going to do. Yeah, sure. It's amazing stuff. So it's a fascinating thing that this is happening now, and because it is the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht coming up on November 10th. I want to thank you so much for coming to talk to me about this, Gary.
My pleasure.
And I wish you well in the production, and if we could throw on the screen so that people know how to get to California Stage and see this production. So here it is. Whoosh, boom. Okay, boom again. Okay. Well, where is California Stage anyway?
Oh, it's there's a little arts complex at 25th and R. It's a compound that has 2 or 3 different performance spaces, and they have all kinds of stuff going on there all the time.
And times like these plays for how long? What, 3 more weeks?
3 more weeks, right. We close November 18th. Performances are Fridays and Saturdays at 8 o'clock and Sundays at 2.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on Livewire, and I wish you well with times like these.
Thank you.
It's a drama, and folks don't usually get to see dramas here in old Sacramento.
Well,
and I wish you
this
well
is
in your
one.
own career. You're also a writer.
Correct. Yeah. I write plays and screenplays and things. I'm right now writing a children's theater piece for the city of Palo Alto.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you, Gary Wright.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll see you next week live on Livewire. Live every Wednesday at 5. Okay? See you now. Bye. Okay, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.